Hello and welcome back to Underlab. Today I have another theory proposed by Kate Jensen, and this one is really clever. Icecap is a seemingly insignificant monster we can sometimes encounter within Snowdin. He's really nothing special, and we can fight him multiple times. One strange distinction about him, however, is how he cherishes his hat, which seems to be his sole defining characteristic. So why is that? Is there actually a secret to that oddly shaped hat of his? As it turns out, there may very well be far more to it than it seems, and so let's discover the secret behind Icecap's hat. Snowdin is the second major area within Undertale, and most people remember it for the entertaining antics of Papyrus and his brother Sans. The two of them pretty much hog the spotlight, while other monsters seem to be demoted to irrelevancy. Truthfully enough, there's not many interesting characters roaming about Snowdin other than the canine unit and the two skeletal sentries. However, there is one exception. Icecap, as I've already mentioned, stands out as being a little more peculiar than the rest. Not only is his obsession with his hat somewhat strange, but the hat itself may very well tie into a much greater conspiracy surrounding Undertale. So just what exactly is so important about the little guy's hat? Well, firstly, it doesn't even really resemble one. In fact, it looks more like a shard of ice. That isn't necessarily all that out of place, considering monsters' weird habits. Icecap is just as quirky as anyone else in Undertale. Then there's the fact that they really do admire their hat. They want nothing more than for you to appreciate their stunning choice in fashion. It's almost as if the hat has more personality than Icecap themselves. As it turns out, that's pretty much true. Should we manage to steal Icecap's hat, they're revealed to be nothing more than a block of ice, a bit like the ones that the wolf in Snowdin throws into the river. Does that mean that Icecap was never even a real monster in the first place? Well, strangely, they can still talk, even after being reduced to nothing but a cube. However, it's obvious that the hat is far more than just a fashion accessory. In fact, it appears to be responsible for Icecap's entire body. And last time I checked, that isn't really what hats are supposed to be for. Not only that, but things get even more confusing should we complete the game and revisit Snowdin during the epilogue. There we encounter several Icecaps all wearing different coloured hats. They still have roughly the same pointed shape, but they're not the transparent bluish colour you would expect of hats made of ice. In fact, it seems the only thing actually made of ice is Icecap themselves. The hat clearly has a different origin and comes from somewhere else. It's this origin that makes for such an incredible twist and a potential game-changing theory. Let's examine Icecap's hat and then move on to where it probably came from. The hat does one of two things. Either the ice cube is sentient and the hat bolsters its magical ability, allowing it to take a form of its own, or the hat simply transforms whatever it's placed on into something that's alive. Either way, there's clearly a lot of magic stored within it. The question is, of course, who's going around putting magical hats on top of ice cubes? The answer could very well be no one at all, or no one of importance. What we do know, however, is that the transformation probably happens within Waterfall. You may be wondering why I say that and how it's even possible. Well, let me explain. As I mentioned earlier, Icecap's true form resembles the ice cubes that the wolf throws into the water in order to cool down the core. These ice cubes have to go past Waterfall in order to reach the core though, and this is when they either simply stumble upon their hats or someone gives them one. You're probably curious as to why I seem so convinced that the hats are obtained from Waterfall. Is there even any evidence to suggest this? Well, actually there is, and it all ties into something quite interesting. Within a certain room in Waterfall, everything is blacked out and we can only see through the guiding light of certain crystals. Now, take a close look at one of them. Not only do they have a pointed shape, but they have 3 prongs. That's right, they're exactly the same as Icecap's hat. They're detailed down to even the tiny neck in the bottom left. If this isn't where the Icecaps have been getting their hats from, then I can't possibly imagine where else it must be. I think it's pretty undeniable that these are the exact same crystals that we see Icecap wearing. This explains one of the mysteries we've come across so far. As I mentioned, some of the Icecaps appear to be wearing hats that are a completely different colour from what ice should be. However, crystals can surely take any colour they please, and the ones in Waterfall are a bright pink. Relatively close to the red hat, we see one of the Icecaps wearing. You may be wondering how these crystals have become uprooted and placed upon ice cubes floating down the river. Well, I don't think it's a stretch to suggest that it may just be the work of a bored monster. Maybe it's even initiated by the guard force force to create more monsters that can delay any potential human incursions. As I mentioned before, it isn't really that important. What is important is the bigger picture we're slowly piecing together here. Waterfall seems to be an innately magical area, from glowing crystals and fungi to a mystical castle in the background and ancient ruins as we explore the forgotten depths. It may very well be steeped in more magic than any other area in the game. It's not hard to believe that those same crystals are imbued with a magic that allows ice caps to come to life. I also mention this because Waterfall is where we find the legendary artifacts. You may have already seen my video that explores the possible truth behind it. To summarize, I suggested that the artifact the dog steals from us may be a magical crystal-like object that could give almost anyone the ability to harness magic to some extent. This is so important because of the introduction to the game, where it explains that humanity sealed monster kind behind a magical barrier. We also see what clearly appears to be a human wielding a magical stave, which is tipped with a crystal. I argued that perhaps the stave is made of the same material as the legendary artifact, which explains how humans were once able to use magic, despite the game telling us that they can't. Now, I'm not going off topic here. To bring things full circle, the magic crystals that ice caps use may be very similar to the legendary artifacts, if not exactly the same, with the sole distinction of their appearance. The tip of the human mage's staff resembles one of them much more closely than it does anything else I can immediately think of within Undertale. Basically, what I'm getting at is that these crystals appear to have the ability to retain a fair amount of magical energy, and that can be used for whatever end those possessing them have in mind. In Ice Cap's case, he uses it to give himself a real physical body. However, he seems to still understand the importance of the hat he wears, and for that reason he wants to show it off to everyone he meets. The hat is quite literally Ice Cap's entire body. Without it, he's nothing more than an inanimate ice cube. So it's really starting to make sense why Ice Cap takes so much pride in just one article of clothing. As I was saying, however, it seems the crystals can be used for a lot more than just bringing an object to life. As the case may be, they could be the very tool responsible for the creation of the barrier. By fashioning the crystals into magical staves, it seems the humans were able to harness monsterkind's own power against them in order to trap them away for many centuries. So that's the secret of Ice Cap's hat. They're actually wearing an incredibly powerful magical item, which is pretty much their life support. That hat is more Ice Cap than Ice Cap is Ice Cap. This also opens up many possibilities for how magic works within Undertale. For the longest time now, I've dwelled on the possibility that magic seems to seep into things that it comes into contact with, and thereby it also grants them magical properties. I'll talk about it more some other time and the interesting implications it has on certain areas within the game, such as New Home. For now though, let's come back to Ice Cap's hat. If we're to believe the monster's magic is what gave the crystals their enchantment, it makes sense to also think that the underground has always been a place where monsters dwell. When you think about it, it only makes sense, as why else would there be a cavern large enough to hold so many of them? And why would the humans be able to so easily force them to retreat there rather than scattering? It only makes sense that the monsters rushed back to a place they were familiar with, and then ended up holding out a bit like Helm's Deep or something. That means the underground has had plenty of time to become saturated in magical energy, and it's really no surprise that the glowing crystals monsterkind relied on in times long ago are now filled with magic. A plaque even tells us that they've traditionally been used by monsters since ancient times. So there you have it. The next time you laugh at Ice Cap's hat, just remember it's actually a container for incredibly powerful magic. They say big things come in small packages, and Ice Cap is no exception. Who knew that their hat potentially explains one of the biggest mysteries within Undertale, and is incredibly interesting all by itself. If I had a hat like that, I'd probably want to show it off as well, though I honestly can't imagine that wearing a crystal on your head is all that comfortable. What do you think? It seems to me pretty straightforward that Ice Cap's hat is a special crystal from Waterfall, though I guess it could just be the latest in monster fashion. As always, I hope you enjoyed the video. Try not to lose your hat, and I'll see you next time. Before I go, I'd just like to say a massive thank you to my patrons, my head scientists Asgore and She, Cameron Vigil, Kay Jensen, Sophronius and Mary, and my Underlab scientists Crystal Sleet, Nicholas Dux, Armin Arlett, Marisa Ray, Corey Kidwell, Yushio Coroni, Sarah Wydra and Emily Gatewood. If you enjoyed this video, please consider checking out the Patreon link below, as well as the video that explains why I'd so massively appreciate your contribution.